Yay. Oh, is it 3? Oh, no, it's not. How to I would like it if I didn't have to see myself while I was talking. Speaker gallery, immersive. Show self view, maybe it'll say hide self. Hide self view. There's only my view, that's why. Okay. Hi, welcome to office hours. It's 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Wednesday, August 14th, 2024. And the topic this month of August is, hopefully the sound works okay. I can't really self-check. The topic for August is Sleeping Beauties. And I haven't scheduled anyone to phone in. Someone might phone in, but I haven't mentioned it to anyone. Because I do want to keep talking about Sleeping Beauties this month of August. And last week, as I recall, we ended up, the horse is trotting straight lines and turns, straight line turn, straight line turn, straight line turn, briskly on a square, because the opening rein tends to have a similar effect as leg. It gets them moving, and they start to understand, oh, they're following that bit. And the bearing, and as soon as they are following the opening rein at a trot, then the very next turn, then we start to train the bearing rein, which PETA thinks the bearing rein is like some Victorian torture for carriage horses. But the bearing rein, as we use it in our program, unites the forehand so that it can be easily displaced. So now imagine a stuck or green horse that all of a sudden can move his front around. Like, oh, we're going there. Okay, we're going there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So he's already feeling more agile, because a green horse or a stuck horse. Oh, the phone's ringing. It could be, I don't know if it's one of you. I'll have to go find the phone. I'll be right back.
Call from Jaden J. Darren. Call from Jaden J. Darren.
Oh, yay. Okay, I'm going to put you on speaker. It might even be, maybe don't try to see me, because that could be disconcerting.
Okay. Okay. Perfect.
I don't know. Because neither of us know how. I was actually trying to hide my view. Okay, whoever else is watching, we have a phone call for office hours, and I have a feeling it's about Sleeping Beauties. Don't say your name, caller.
Okay.
Okay. Sleeping Beauties. I was talking about them a minute ago, but let's hear what you have to say about them.
I am interested in unlocking Sleeping Beauties because I have one that I work with, and I was just working with him, and he, with certain riders, if they get a little bit clingy in their legs, he really shuts down. But if they sit really loosely and can find that spot, he'll really open up. Like it's like night and day, but trying to keep him unlocked so that other people don't lock him back up. Like I'm just that whole idea of him being able to be unlocked and go forward.
He won't, he will lock up with them no matter what until they learn to not lock him up, because it sounds like he's a really nice, sensitive horse and probably a warm blood. And they are, it's like in their bred character to cooperate. So if they feel the lock, they say, okay, I'll lock. You see what I mean? I have a question for you. Are the riders doing this with their leg or with their thighs and back?
I think it's leg. And then I think when their leg doesn't work, they lock in their thigh and back. Because if I can put them on a lunge line and have them lift their thighs up a little bit, then the horse will go. But then they sometimes fall backwards and then catch them with their leg. So it's sort of that idea, I think, of that balance. But that's why I went to the lunging to fix it.
And it did fix it.
Yes, it did fix it when I could get them when I could get their thigh not grabbing.
That's what I meant. Yes, when you can get their thigh not grabbing. So that then they can use their leg, which is, I'm saying this for other people, the leg, which is the section that is below the knee, the part that fills the tall boot, that is leg. Thigh is not leg. So when they get their thigh to not grab, then they can use their leg. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's very accurate. And I think that's not taught, or there's a missing component there because people seeing it don't see it.
Correct.
And it is hard to see. I do think it's hard to see because this rider looks particularly sort of supple in a way. Actually kind of a little more supple, but there was a lot of thigh tension stopping the horse. And yeah, that makes sense. I think I'm seeing, but it was quite hard to fix.
Yes, as a teacher, I believe that is the hardest thing to fix too. And it's frustrating for them because they don't know they're doing it. And a lot of us women do it because our thighs and hips are the strongest part of our anatomy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so it's an unconscious, like our bodies do it without our authorization. Do you remember it just was posted a few days ago. There's Ingrid Klimke. I think it's at Aachen that she's warming up. That warm-up video. Did you see that?
Yes.
Did you really pay attention to the quality of the flesh in her thighs, in her britches, and really study what is actually going on in her seat? I know that you understand it, but I wonder if that could be a visual for the people that you teach to see it. Do you remember what I'm talking about? The quality. I mean, that was a skinny, fit woman, and she looked cellulite-y in the video, if you really look.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that. One of the things I did notice, like I felt like the whole picture was always just loose and going forward. I did notice when she went to do it down, finish the transition and go to walk, she lifted her thighs up.
Every time.
Loosen her thighs and kind of like position probably her weight or just get a little bit looser.
Yeah, and open up the space for the rib cage and flanks to expand as she was continually collecting them. I noticed that too. Every downward transition, she did that. Yeah, that's a really important point. So the riding is the riding itself, that it be loose, forward going riding, that the horse has an open end. And we already all know that the horses need an open end out the bridle, of course, but they need an open end in their body. And that's where I think you've hit on, well, it's the biggest sticking point of all. And very few riders address it. Most of the time they just say, oh, the horse is stuck, and they get a different one.
Well, that's what I mean. I think it's so quick to go to what's wrong with the horse.
Yeah.
Like, something wrong with the horse, and then sometimes the horses get like squishing tails and get a little resistant. They're like, it must feel terrible.
Yes. This is what I wanted to say. So the green horses, when they feel the stickness on them, they probably feel really awkward. Like, how on earth am I going to comply in this situation? They literally, I think, feel stuck and heartbroken inside, because how could they conform to something saying go, but holding it so it can't go through its back? So that horse feels awkward and in a conundrum. And a more trained horse might say, she doesn't know what she's doing. I can just walk around like a plug. And a more sensitive tuned horse will blow up. So it's very different. Different characters will have a different response to being ridden stuck. When you can get your riders to feel, they need to almost learn to ride thighless. Our thighs just serve as meat, ballast, load to stabilize the back end of the horse. When your riders are able to feel the absence of use of thighs, then are they able to use their leg in quick, concise aids?
I think some of them can. I think in this case, no, it was still not really in the coordination pattern.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I think the lunging needed to happen. So a lot of times I think they're too quick to get them off the lunge line, or obviously you need to get some off the lunge line, but there wasn't in that person's body yet. I think it could be, but also this person's rather tall.
Okay.
So it's tall, lanky, I would say low tone, but there's a lot of angles there to manage.
Yeah.
The horse isn't huge, but it's not too small. You know what I mean? It's sort of an interesting, like, then you start looking at size of horse, levers, like the length of the femur.
Right. Yeah, all of that matters. And oftentimes, well, I think what you said a few minutes ago is very important, that a person can be low toned or a loose person and still be blocking the horse. And I think that comes when they may have good angles, say looking at them at a side view, but they may be misinterpreting the use of their own angles.
Yeah, and I do think that the stirrup length was too long.
Yeah.
Because it was too long, it was making the person, when they would post arch through their lower back, they were lifting up through their lower back and going up and down instead of sort of like just over the balls of their feet back and forward.
Right.
That up and down, I think, was literally probably inner thigh pressure, and this vertical up and down was probably blocking the horse.
Yeah, the inner thigh pressure starts the chain of events that blocks.
Which would make your back like hollow and stiff. Like it was like the whole low back was like, it was like working instead of.
Right. Yeah. And then they also sometimes will then try to literally push with their pelvis, push forward, but they're just pushing into a barrier that they already created with the inside of their thighs closing together.
I think that's what was happening. It was like, I had her post lower and left. Like she was posting so high and so forcefully, it was making her block.
One thing that I do, speaking of posting, is most people that block horses can't post properly. And I make them do that exercise where they have to change diagonals, staying in the air. They usually fall down because they're posting off their own muscle instead of being loose and having the horse's momentum cause their seat to post. Is that cogent how I said that? So that's the one thing I do to diagnose. And then the other thing I do so they can experience what they're doing is they're making resistance in themselves when they use their muscle to post instead of being loose riders and letting and making room for the horse to literally advance our seat rising. I make them take their palm, the very center of the palm, right in the center, their outside palm, and locate the palm on their own coccyx, and then tell them that they have to, that they have to let the power of their own arm post them. And they will start to push with their arm and they'll feel a resistance that's in their caused by their own back and hips. They don't understand what it is at first. And so then I just make them keep going around and I say, using your arm strength only, try to feel in your hip and back where you are, where your arm is finding finding space it can't push through. Is that clear? How understandable? And then the rider themselves will sometimes realize, oh my gosh, I'm really holding myself. And my hip can't just travel free, forward, loose, because they feel it in their own arm, struggling to push against something that is rigid. And then once they learn, so posting, I always post just so the horse has more room. My posting is very benign and it's the horse's own. That's why when you warm up a horse, like your black horse you ride, you start riding him and you're barely moving, either of you, right? Same in Ingrid's warm up. The first posting trot, you're like, this is dressage. This looks like it's some therapeutic riding or something. It's very tiny because there's not momentum and built and looseness coming all through together yet. But very soon, maybe one time around, all of a sudden the strides are a foot bigger, and the posting should follow. Posting is the size of the steps. Is that cogent? Yeah, I think that's right. Our posting really is the size of the steps. And as the horse gets looser, our seat is getting looser too, and it is in rising trot, we're being propelled forward and then sit again. In sitting trot, we're being carried forward and sit as we're sitting.
Good distinction.
Yeah. And so what I would do to loosen a horse, which would be rising trot and a lot of canter, most riders who don't have an educated seat and hold with their seat, they do stuff with their seat instead of have a through going influential seat. I can't use that prescription on those riders because they block it.
So as a teacher, if I'm trying to get through to somebody, then playing, like if I were to this rider, I was thinking if I were to shorten her stirrups and made her have a little better base support, that would have been essentially, I probably should have shortened them.
Yeah, and I tell them, I say, imagine the arc of the stride of the horse, imagine the stride of the horse like an arc. The bottom, your crotch literally has to follow that arc. So posting is, it doesn't look like it when we're watching it because the whole creature, rider and horse together, is traveling forward. But but sometimes the riders feel inhibited because it is a little bit more like my crotch clearing the pommel because it's following an arc up. But my crotch isn't clearing the pommel if an onlooker's looking, it doesn't look obscene like that because the whole horse is traveling forward in space. So it may feel like I'm letting my hips thrust forward, but I'm really not. I'm with the arc of the stride. I hope that's not confusing because
I like the arc of the stride. I think that's another good visual because I think people do well with.
Yeah, it's an upward. We follow the arc of the stride upward with our seat and then gently replace ourselves down in the spot of the saddle we left. So my rising trot is upward, forward, rest in the same spot, upward, forward, rest, upward. And when I rest, my horse's own momentum, his propulsion bounces me up again. So I rest, I'm being bounced.
So to change these sleeping beauties, you have to get it in their body that they feel free.
Yeah. Yes, the horse sleeping beauty, he cannot, if they feel inhibited, they will say, she is inhibiting me and I must be. Most of these sleeping beauties are very obedient warm bloods, and they feel the inhibiting feature in the rider's anatomy, and they obey it because they're good boys and girls. Like they wouldn't dare run through it. Does that make sense? That's the dilemma.
Yeah.
It's a big dilemma for them mentally and for the horse mentally and emotionally. Some of them will say just, but this, of course, you can see how rearing can come from this too.
Or they get so mad.
Yeah.
They just say, get it, do something stupid.
Yeah. Most of them don't get so mad. Most of them just either think, I've got it made now. I'll never really have to work hard. Or they think, this is heartbreaking. I'm going to just be, like a bureaucrat, like just, stuck in this boring desk job my whole life. They get depressed. And then add that contributing factor, and they probably don't feel good in their body because it isn't able to move enough. So then you have a somewhat depressed but obedient, cooperative, polite horse. I mean, how sad is that?
Right.
Now, then if it's green, that's a whole nother thing, because the green horse, he's like, la, 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 la. I don't really, he doesn't realize he's being asked to do something. So he's not trying hard. He's never even considered the idea of athletic effort with his rider. It's then, this is all new. But then we want to explain it to them. So there's a stout, well, he just got gelded horse this morning, 4-year-old, and he's going on a square. Now he's learning these quick turns. He's following the opening rein with a really fast bearing rein, and his left shoulder isn't quite as fast as his right shoulder. So she himself, and he was like, "Oh, I get it." And then he was all like, "Do do 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 do," like a little like really going before he was like, "Oh, heave, oh." So, and you can see his little face understanding. Oh, I displace my whole forehand, and then I can just keep going. And you could see him quickening and brightening in his mind. And then after his cute, darling little turns, she taught him something that he'd already learned on the lunge line. She said, trot on. And he already knew from the lunge line that he should double his trot. So after his corners, he would go through his corners really carefully with his new united forehand. And then she would say, trot on. And he would go until it was time for his next turn. And 3 weeks ago, he was like a slug.
Pretty cool story. I have another random question about breed.
Yes.
If it appears in my just working with like, all right, just like if it's easier, that's why I think people sometimes would pick maybe a quarter horse with smaller motion. They find it easier. Like some of these horses will tolerate that, or why is it breed specific as well?
Yes, and doesn't that make you just, I mean, then those big cowboys on those little horses that don't even have any range of motion in their skeleton, it's not that interesting, is it?
I understand, and I feel bad for the horse.
Yeah, especially when their front feet are so small.
Some of these horses just kind of plod along.
They plod along. That is exactly what I'm talking about, the depressed ones. They're heartbroken. There's a lot of FEI horses and jumpers and dressage horses in America that are heartbroken, plodding along. Yep.
All good food for thought.
Sad, but good food for thought. Yes. And, may I just keep you on the phone because last week, I think I finished talking about a young horse learning correct turns, displacing his forehand, opening bearing rein, page 163. Now we have this young horse trotting on after his turns. So guess what he naturally did after he's making these quick turns and then going forward after his turns? What a concept. He even went forward a couple times on his own without her saying trot on. What do you think that he's young? He's not that strong. What do you think happened that he wasn't really very good at doing 3 weeks ago that she was having trouble with? If he's trotting kind of at the top of his trot, what probably happened? and we took advantage of it.
I can't.
Yes, he cantered. And he cantered 3 or 4 big circles without quitting, but like bounding forward because and he did it both directions today. So now we have a started horse with that horse. That horse is started. He can probably start the oval maybe next week. And you know how fast then things will start to go.
Horse is 4.5.
He's 4. He's just 4. And because of the bearing rein, I could already see him starting. There was a round outline in his own athletic body. Because he was using himself well. He's like, here comes a turn. I better, and now he knows how to turn because he's an athlete.
That brings up the point if a horse has started really well, and the importance of starting them really well versus having to undo.
Exactly right. So here we have a 4-year-old horse who already understands the concept of carrying himself forward after inner engagement. He already understands that. He already understands more than many horses on the planet. And he's really only been at it, well, he got gelded in July. So it doesn't, when they get the right ideas at the beginning, it doesn't take very long. And so because he's so young, he's only going to do stuff in the arena like this 2 or 3 days a week. The rest of the time he's out galloping in fields and going through forests, which is also really good for him. But yes, these are the ideas that if it gets instilled early on in the horse, that is going to be a useful, wonderful horse for its lifetime. Now, a lot of these imported European horses that are stuck, that are sleeping beauties, they know it. And that's why they're heartbroken. They know what they're doing is wrong.
Yeah.
But it's a good kind to find when you can see one and buy one, if you know what to do. And if you can look in their eye and know you can help them through it. And because they will, when they find out about what Steinbeck tells us about the open seat on page 34, or the major just said, my dear, you must sit more like a frog. When the horses find out that the right way, they will usually try again. That's why you can get on the horses that your students might have stuck. You can get on the horse and go, it's me. And they go, oh yeah, now we go.
Yeah, I think that's a hard thing. It's probably frustrating for people who want to be able to do it and they can't figure out what they're doing.
Yeah.
But then they just go, well, I just won't ride that horse instead of working through it.
Yeah, or asking the question, or, considering having Walmart obese lady weak thighs in the riding. I think that
I don't even know if it's strength. Sometimes I think
it's not strength.
Sometimes it's even, I think that I had an interesting conversation with the health professional. We were talking about anxiety.
Yes, good. Very, very, yes. That could cause the tightening also. Yes. Excellent point.
Really interesting. And I think it's even subconscious, like a sort of like, they don't even know they're doing it.
They don't know they're doing it.
Anxiety that the horses, I was like, wow, they're sitting on their central nervous system. I mean, they've got it. They feel everything.
They feel everything. And they'll post on Facebook that horses feel everything, but then they block them with their like python strength thighs. And, and so there's anxiety. A lot of riders they're not really committed to the horse going forward. If the horse really goes forward, they'll go, oh my God, because it's a big feeling, right? There's also a performance anxiety factor, either not wanting to appear foolish or not wanting to do it wrong. That can inhibit people. There's many things, and that's where we as teachers have to kind of figure out how to get them through it too, and give them just like I would say to a horse, hey, the bit's an open end, and I'm never going to stop you going forward that way. the same way we can help people go through their own labyrinth of why. But usually, I think most riders and horse lovers are pretty athletic, self-aware people. And I think if you can get them to feel what they're actually doing instead of what they think they're doing, a lot of times, like if you can help them identify it, a lot of them will solve it or do a great deal to solve it on their own. I think the hard part is convincing them of what is actually happening.
The other interesting thing that you said that is the anxiety, but also this writer would look down, right? When they looked down and sort of got in their own little circle of what's going wrong, everything went wrong. But if they looked up and tracked where they were going, it made the horse so much more clear. So again, tracking your line, scouting your line. But
the horses can feel when we're not looking where we're going. It would just be like if, let's pretend you were in a taxi cab in New York and the driver was on his phone texting. You would feel anxiety. So the horses feel anxiety when they can tell us that they can tell we're not looking where we're going. But there's even more to it. So looking down, the whole plumb line is now collapsing forward. And if the plumb line is collapsing forward, I believe this is right, that the nervous system of the body would immediately automatically counteract that tip with a contraction inwards with the thighs.
like a fetal position.
Yeah. So the tip would, it's not going to just be if the front of the rider starts to collapse forward by looking down, the upper back's now rounded. There's no plumb line holding the stabilizing that the horse can rely on, keeping its hindquarters steady. You see, the whole thing is just, the French and Fort Riley riding instructions say that looking down destroys the seat. That's a strong word, destroy. It destroys the seat. And if it's only for an instant, you just destroyed your seat for an instant. How is that horse going to, God, I wonder if I really try this for her. Is she going to destroy it again? You see the dilemma?
Yeah.
The horse's dilemma. And there was something that I want to just interject now because I don't want to sound like these horses. I think there are a lot of horses in quandaries, like they don't know what to do what's the right thing. Do I protect this person from the shock of what it feels like if I really go forward? Because I don't think she really wants to go forward. So the horse doesn't really go, but then he gets a spanking because he didn't go. So the horses are in a quandary. But there is a very difficult type of horse that I wanted to bring up this week, and that is the cheerful horse. The cheerful horses that don't care either way, if it's you or it's her, or they have to really go, go okay with that. If you give them a swat, they go, "Ooh, baby." They just don't care, and they don't seem to care. They're cheerful. They aren't in a bad mood. It's like you can't reach them to convince them to improve. And we call those the Jimmy Buffetts. They're going to get a margarita anyway. So they don't try. And there are some of those. Those are a puzzle. And oftentimes they're really good athletes. So they can do what you ask while they're looking out the window.
I've ever.
They can be, because you have to get through to them and get them interested in what you're doing. There's a couple. I have a couple of those right now.
Is there a type that goes regardless and then a really expensive one?
The ones that do it regardless at risk of their own health are the really expensive ones. Yeah. And they still they will still need to be tuned up by by the person who made them or someone else competent, because eventually they can't keep going. Well, imagine a hind leg out, one of their hind legs engaged and the other one only pushing. It's not going to last, is it?
Right.
It can't last. This is, do you have any more? This is very rich, I think, what we're talking about.
No, it's making me think, in my past, how I would be so judgy about, oh, I'm not gonna ride this horse is blah, 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 where it really wasn't the horse.
Yeah. I learned this the first time I really had to confront this was on a jumper called Valiant. And a few people, there was 3 of us assistants and 2, they hated riding him too. But I learned, I got to go in a clinic with him with a famous person and unlock. I learned, that's where I really started to learn this. And of course, much later with the major, I learned it way more. But yeah, once they go, it really is the open seat. It's the open seat, page 34. I really believe is the very best concrete instructions that you can give a student. That, and I think in my courses, I make people print it out and put it on their refrigerator or their makeup mirror or where they're going to see it, because it's really true. And he even, like at the end of it, he talks about when the open seat, once the horse knows that we're not going to block, when they collect, their flanks and rib cage has to expand. When the horses find out that we know that, like Ingrid opening her seat at every downward transition in that warm-up video, when the horses find out that we know that, then they will start to move on their own, because it feels good.
Yeah. It would be like somebody like telling you to go and stopping you all the time. It would be like, I can see how it would be really frustrating.
It is. Yeah, and sometimes there's no way around it, but the drill of, okay, let's do upward transitions and have 2 marks, say, on a big circle. Every time you cross the center line, you're going to trot, or even just on a straight line. Every time you go past this mark, you're going to trot. Exhale, open your seat, push the reins forward, say trot, and, maybe be there to help them a little bit at first to get the horse moving. So they create a new pattern in their body of opening and loosening their joints to start literally everything.
Like that mantra.
Yeah. Exhale, loosen all joints.
Prepare to trot. Cause I feel like when I would say get ready to trot, it was like
everyone's like, no, exhale, prepare to trot. Technically, if everything's really understood, should mean prepare to trot does mean exhale, loosen all joints. Prepare means exhale, loosen all joints. Something is going to happen. And that's why I think you even feel it on your own horse sometimes. When you exhale, loosen all joints, he's like, oh, are we going to trot? Should I halt? Am I going to pee off? And then because that is readiness.
okay.
But yeah, it's a little puzzle. I just thought of one other exercise. Let me make a note. I'll try to find the video of it where I'm unsticking a stuck horse. I have unsticking on straight line. And I usually unstick them on a straight line at one point. I just bring the horse around to the same point, and at the exact same place the first time I say trot, and nothing happens, and I have to kick him, like, fell well kick, and he's like, oh my God, who's this lady? And then I just walk around to the same place and I ask again, and then it's still usually kind of stuck. But by the 3rd time, it's like, oh, she says the same thing every time we get here. So then he sort of starts to go on his own and I make a fuss of him. And then I start to say, I come around again. Maybe I'm going to come around 8 times, which is not that much work because it's just one point. We're going to make an upward transition. And the rest of the time we're just walking around until we get there on a loose rein. So by the time I've gone through it 5 times, he knows I'm loosening all my joints. I'm about to ask him to go. And then they start to just go on their own. And then the horse is unstuck. And then you can start saying, this is my weight. It doesn't stick you. It gently secures your coxofemoral joint so you can trust it and load it. It's loading it a little bit so it can have a little more bounce. Horses, I think, will forgive the thigh. Their real betrayal is the hand. They'll get over that too, though. Okay, is that
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
all right? There's a little more. We'll stay in this topic through August. It's a really important topic. But the best thing I know to do is go to go stop turn. Make sure that that's where the stuck is. It's in the very, very base of it all. Thank you for calling into office hours. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, so that is more on Sleeping Beauty and unsticking and how the riding relates to it. But please remember what I was telling you about the young stallion who he's more active. I was just today, I was clapping. Wow, it was 15 minutes only, though he's already doing it on his own. It just starts to go really fast when they never learn that we're going to contradict ourselves. So just never contradict yourself. That is a really important key. Steinbeck, page 34, which the major summarized as, my dear, you must sit more like a frog. And since our theme is Sleeping Beauties, and on this video, I'm putting Prince Charming kissing Sleeping Beauty as the solution to her snooziness is coming to bear. Also remember that that frogs are involved in these fairy tales too. So open the seat, find the correct base of support that is a channel forwards. And those of you who have done 101 through 105 plus 108, if you would like me to fetch you that Ingrid Klimke video, I will. But I'm not just going to do it for the general public. And please email me for that. Okay. We might have a surprise field trip for office hours next week.